One summer we were roommates.
Well, were you really?
At Iowa State Teachers College.
Oh, really?
Oh.
And we were sorority sisters.
Oh, which sorority?
Kappa Delta Phi.
Okay, yep. Now, Laura,
Uh-huh.
scoot in. And I'll show you why. There's a reason for all this. Molly, I'm gonna have you sit right here. So you're both off camera, but now as you ask the questions, even if they're not looking at the camera, they're still within that view, so it looks like they are looking.
Yeah.
So you're sticking close. Plus, now all the sound's gonna be right here instead of echoing, so it's gonna keep it a little closer.
Okay.
So, make sense?
Yeah. Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, just
Absolutely.
help me where I can.
All right, so like I said, this is a very informal conversation between you ladies and ourselves. You're one of our first joint interviews, so this is really exciting.
Oh.
And like I said over the phone, we're just going to talk about your years as a teacher. We want to know where you grew up, what led you to teaching, talk a little bit about your day, morning, midday, afternoon. Then we want to talk about a little bit about what you did after, where you ended up, and your perception on education of yesterday and today as well. So touching a base on a little bit of everything. But just to start off, if you could please state your name, your role as a teacher, what years you taught, and the name of your school, please. Would you like to
Darlene
go first?
Monroe. What was the second question?
You were a teacher, correct?
Yeah,
What school?
I think it was Clark number 4,
In
5 miles west of Dysart. That's where I taught.
and what years?
In 1950 and 51.
50, 51?
I taught south of Dysart in Oneida number 1, and I taught country school in 1950, 51 also.
Okay.
And that was the only year that I taught in a rural school,
So you each had 1 year teaching
Uh-huh.
rural
in the
school.
rural school. Mhm.
Okay. And you attended Iowa State Teachers College?
That's right.
All right. How long were you there for?
Just a year and a summer.
Year and a
And I
summer?
was the same.
And you were roommates?
Right.
For the summer. And another Dysart girl was my roommate, and that's how I got here to Dysart.
Okay. What led you to teaching?
I don't know what led me to teaching. I just wanted to go to college, and I decided then to be a teacher. I don't think anything particularly happened that I was destined to be a teacher.
Well, I happened to have been dating a fellow who was teaching, and we had sort of made some plans that maybe we would spend our lives together, and he suggested, why don't you go to school and be a teacher too, and then we could work together. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll do that. And part of it did not work out, but anyway, after I got started going to Iowa State Teachers College, I really did get into it and thought, this is for me.
What was life like at ISTC?
Well, there weren't very many guys there. You know, the war hadn't been over too long, and it was mostly girls. And the guys were all at Iowa State. And so on Saturday nights particularly, the road was hot between Ames and Cedar Falls. And so that's kind of how it was. In fact, frankly, we called it the nunnery because it was so few guys around. And the ones that were around, we really weren't too interested in.
And so you met each other at the Teachers College,
Teachers
right?
College,
Okay, cool.
So let's talk about where you grew up. You said you grew up 5 miles.
It was 7 miles south of Dysart and on a farm. That's where I was born. And then my folks moved to town, I think in 46. And I graduated in 49. So I was in town for 3 years before I graduated from high school. And that's just, you know, the way it was.
Was it very common for women to go into teaching? Did you feel like that was something you naturally had to do, or did you have a general interest in teaching, or?
Well, not particularly. No, I didn't. Maybe you did.
Well, I grew up on a farm in Webster County. I was born in Fort Dodge and grew up on a farm. and graduated from Dayton High School in 1949, and decided then that summer maybe I wanted to go into teaching, and so I applied to Iowa State Teachers College, and in the fall I was off to school.
Did you feel like that was a role that women just assumed, or?
Well, it kind of came naturally. My mother was a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher, and in Europe, before my relatives came, they were schoolmasters, many of them, so it kind of came naturally, I guess.
So then you applied to ISTC, you were there for a year and a summer. What sort of curriculum was there? How many classes did you take?
Oh goodness, it's so long ago, I don't remember.
That's for sure.
It was, the major was upper elementary education.
Okay.
I don't remember either what classes I took at all. Swimming, I took swimming.
Okay. But you're also in a sorority, correct? I don't know much. You know more about Greek life than
Yeah, I was in a sorority. So, did they have multiple sororities on campus, or was it just?
No, there were a number of them, but they did not have any houses.
No, they
Nobody
didn't.
had houses.
Okay. Were they?
There were a number of sororities and fraternities.
Okay, and were they more like philanthropic, or were they educational?
They were more, the one
sororities?
we were in was more social.
Social. Okay.
interesting. So then you graduated, you received your certificate.
We were the 1 year program
1 year
at
program.
that time. Mhm.
And then you ended up in what school? Clark? Clark number 5.
And Oneida number
And
1.
Oneida number 1. Now, how does that work where teachers are placed in the schools? Does the superintendent place you, or how do teachers end up in the schools that they were placed?
I don't know how we were notified that there were openings, but I went to the school director and applied for the job.
Right.
And was hired.
So you went through an interview.
Mhm.
But what were those interviews like?
Very short. If you were willing to teach, they were glad to they were glad to hire. Teachers were not easily found,
Okay.
particularly that wanted to teach in a rural school.
Oh, really? And this is the 50s, right?
Mhm.
Okay, that's very interesting. Were there very many male teachers, do you know of?
I didn't know any in Tama County. As far as I know, all the teachers in Tama County were women.
Do you know why, perhaps?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
But it was just, there were very few guys actually going into teaching when
Really?
we were in college.
It's very interesting because this is post-World War II, right?
Mhm.
So, okay. Oh, okay. So, little birdie over here. So, do you know why it was so hard to find teachers?
I don't think anybody else applied to the school that I taught at.
No,
Okay.
there were 3 openings in Tama County, and we 3 from this area applied and were hired at all 3 of them. And a lot of the rural school teachers that I knew from Tama County had been teaching for many years in that particular rural school. Some of them been there 10, 12, 15 years.
Really?
Once they were established and the families, they knew the families, a lot of them stayed and continued to teach in those schools.
Oh, interesting.
So why did you specifically choose to work in the rural schools? Did you see that there was an opening and you took the chance, or were you drawn to a rural school?
It was the only thing available for me.
Yeah.
You know, having 1 year. Yeah.
Well, and I think we heard that there were openings, and I think we just kind of thought, hey, that sounded kind of like a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
Rather than staying there and finishing our 2nd year. Because then the regular teaching certificate for elementary school was a 2-year curriculum, Iowa State Teachers College.
Okay.
But you could teach in 1 year.
Okay.
But you were expected then to go back and get that 2nd year.
But did you?
I did not.
You did not?
I did.
You did?
I went back and then finally went 4 years.
You went 4 years?
Eventually. Mhm.
Why did you not go back?
Because I got married and moved out of the state.
Okay, well, yeah.
Yeah.
What did you do with your 4-year degree then?
Well, at the time, I had gone back to teaching full-time for 10 years after I was married. I had family. I substituted here in town and out at Geneseo, which was a consolidated school in the country. And then there was a real teacher shortage. This was about in the early 1960s. Teachers were at a premium, and they could not find a 6th grade teacher at Geneseo. And so I went out there to teach. I really wasn't ready to go back because I had a 3-year-old. But I taught out there for 5 years, and then I decided to go back and finish my degree.
Okay.
So I did go back then, spent 2 years, and then I was asked to come back and teach in town here. And I taught in town then from 1969 until 1994.
Wow. So your background is very interesting because you went to a consolidated school, then you taught in a rural school, and then you went back into a consolidated school. What was that transition like from consolidated to one-room schoolhouse to back to a consolidated school?
Well, of course, there were many more children when you went back to a consolidated school. I did have children K through 8 at my rural school, but there were many more children, and you weren't doing preparations for every subject for kids in 9 grades. That was the biggest thing.
So it was much more specific to the age group instead of being a little bit more broad.
And I ended up most of the years teaching science all day.
Okay. Yeah. And then at the rural school, it would be just a variety
Everything.
of topics?
Everything.
Okay, yeah. Did you find that sort of an odd shift to have to just focus on one thing? Did you miss teaching the other topics, or was it nice to sort of just focus on one?
After I got used to it, I rather liked it because I didn't have as many preparations and I could really spend time. And science at that time became more hands-on, and so it did require a lot of preparation. But some years I had 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. So I still had plenty of preparations.
How many students were in your one-room schoolhouse?
Probably, I'm guessing, 12?
12. Do you know how many in each grade?
I can barely remember, but I think I remember. You want to know that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. 1st grade 1, 2nd grade 1, 3rd grade 3, and then 4th, 5th, and 6th 1, and 7th 2 girls.
2 girls? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember how many?
I had 2 kindergartners, 1 1st grader, 2 2nd graders, 3 3rd graders, a 4th grade, a 5th grade, 2 6th grade, 2 7th, and an 8th grader.
Oh my.
Wow, quite the age range there. Kindergarten, that's pretty young versus like an 8th grader.
Yes, my older kids were bigger than I was.
Let's talk a little bit about what your schoolhouses looked like. Do you remember the outside appearance? Was it white schoolhouse?
Right.
Was it sort of like a boxcar shape, like 6 windows?
Kind of like this.
Kind of like this, okay. Same with yours?
My school was identical to this one,
Oh, really?
with the 4 windows on each side and the steeple with a bell in. It was a newer school, and it was on a basement, and I had a furnace.
Oh, you did?
And I didn't have a furnace. I had an oil burner.
Okay. So the area around your school, did it have a playground? Was it open field, outhouses, coal sheds?
It had outhouses, and the playground was just swings and a merry-go-round. I think that's all there was for, things for the kids to play on. We made up our own games and played those.
Oh, like Annie I Over and things like that.
Right, yeah.
Your school?
Of course, we had 2 outhouses, and all we had on the playground, I believe, as I can remember, was a merry-go-round. We did not have swings. I talked to one of my former students the other day, and I said, "Do you remember?" And she said, "I think there was just a merry-go-round." So we played a lot of games. We went out and played all together, and one of their favorites was kick the can.
Oh, yeah.
Kick the can and Annie over, and they would play hide and seek, and weren't very many places to hide, but around on the other side of the schoolhouse and that kind of thing. And in the winter, I remember particularly we played fox and geese.
Oh, okay.
And the kids liked to play fox and geese.
Mhm.
And we played a lot of work-up softball. And it was fun because the older ones would help the little ones.
I was actually going to ask you about that because you did have such a big age range. I was wondering if there was ever sort of, if the older kids did help out with the younger kids.
Mhm.
Okay.
And on the playground, help them bat. The teacher was the permanent pitcher. And the older ones would help the little ones bat and help them run where to run. And we didn't have any bases, so I think I remember I got the things that you put on the sink to drain the dishes, you know, the flat that you put under the sink drainer. I think I bought 4 of those so we could have bases.
Oh, you got them?
Mhm.
Okay.
Little makeshift field.
Yeah. Did it have a flagpole? Did you have a flagpole, a well?
I don't think I did.
Did you have a
I
flagpole?
don't think so.
Uh-huh.
You had a flagpole.
Mhm. And we put the flag up every day and took it down.
Saying the pledge every day?
Not outside though, we said our pledge inside.
All right, and so it was on a plot of land, correct? How far away did you live from your plot of land, your schoolhouse? Was it a 1 mile, 2 mile?
How far did I live?
Yes.
About 5 miles. So,
5 miles?
Yeah, yeah.
And I lived in town, I was about 8 miles.
8 miles. How did you get to school?
I drove.
Drove?
Yeah.
And I did too.
Do you remember any particular troubles getting to school, like snowstorms?
I do. I remember going through a big drift. I didn't think I could get through it, but I tried and I made it, and snow was just fine, but that's all I remember.
Well, I remember going on some mighty snowy days, but I never did really have any trouble.
Okay. You always had to get there, right? To get to
Right.
the schoolhouse?
Yeah.
Were those your only duties in the morning? Like getting the schoolhouse?
I had to light the oil burner.
Oil burner.
And I had to start the furnace. And what I did in the winter was we would go on Sunday afternoon and start the fire. And I was so glad that my dad had taught me how to bank a fire, because I got the schoolhouse warmed up on Sunday afternoon and then would bank the fire so that on Monday morning I could just put in more fuel and open the damper and it was warm in no time. And every night then I banked the fire so that in the morning I could get it warm right away.
So I'm going to cut in, mostly because this is probably something, I don't know if you know this. When you say furnace, coal burning or wood burning?
It was coal burning.
It was a coal burning, okay, so you had to stop it.
I had to put the coal in.
Okay, very cool. When you said that, I'm like, you're not talking a gas furnace then, something very different.
No.
And I'm going to go back a little bit because there's a few things I want to make sure we get on camera.
Okay,
So you
yeah,
don't mind.
absolutely.
This is, one thing that you mentioned a couple different games, and we've heard different variations of it. Could you explain 2 of them for me? The geese and the, what'd you call it? Fox and the geese?
Fox and geese and kick the can?
Exactly. Those were the 2 I was hoping you could explain.
Okay, well, fox and geese would do that after a fresh snowfall. And you made a circle, a big circle, and then perpendicular lines through it, one way and one the other. And in the center we made sort of a circle, and that was the home base. And somebody was it, and then everybody ran around, and the person who was it tried to catch somebody, and then they became it. And if you had to, you could run quick to home base. But the kids had a lot of fun with that. And kick the can, you all gathered around, and I don't remember, I think it was by the pump, and somebody would kick the can, and then you all had to run and hide. It was sort of like hide and seek. And then if you could run in and kick the can again, everybody could go run and hide some more.
And by can, you're talking the can that
Like a
doesn't
tin
have hydrant?
can. A tin can.
Tin can, okay.
Kick the can.
Very cool.
And if you had gotten caught and were caught there by the can, and somebody came and kicked it, then you could run and hide again.
Okay.
Thank you.
It was fun. And I went out and played with the kids.
So as a female teacher, it was expected for you both to be out in the playground interacting with the kids? That was okay with the community?
Oh, yeah, I think
Well,
so.
yeah, because you were expected, you were in charge and their safety and
Okay. Thank
And
you.
besides, it was sort of like a family. We had fun.
So one of the games, did you actually have equipment that you had to use?
I don't know if the bats were there.
Balls and bats.
Yeah.
Oh, they were just there
They were
already.
there.
Right, and also, since we had a basement, when the weather was really bad, we went downstairs and they played dodgeball. We had a dodgeball.
Oh.
In the basement?
In the basement.
Okay.
Mhm.
So would you do that on days where it was like snowing currently or
It was
raining?
too cold, or if it would be raining.
Okay.
Oh, wow. You must have had a pretty sizable basement then.
It wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
And also, on rainy days, we had our schoolroom games that we played too. Did you play any schoolroom games? I remember we played
I don't recall that.
hide the thimble, and then we played eraser tag. They especially liked eraser tag.
How do you play that?
Well, you have to go with an eraser on your head, so that means you couldn't run. I mean, it was a controlled tag game,
Oh.
and somebody would be it, and then somebody else had to be the one that was being chased, but you had to keep the eraser on your head.
Okay.
We didn't do that.
It was good because they couldn't get carried away and fall down and things like that.
They had to be careful
Mhm.
not to. That's a good way to get them to stay a little bit more calm when you had to be inside.
So like a behavior control, like learning activity for them as well.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay, so you get to school, you walk in, one doors or two doors?
One.
One door?
I think just one.
Just one door?
Uh-huh.
You walk in, you had a little entrance to your schoolhouse?
Oh, I don't remember.
I did.
You did, okay. Then you walk in, and was the teacher's desk in the front or the back?
Mine was in the front.
Well,
As you
I
walked
moved
in.
mine around.
Oh, did you?
Sometimes it was in the front and sometimes I had it in the back.
Oh, you did?
I changed mine around different times.
Any particular reason or
Well, just for a variety.
variety? Okay. Interesting.
And then would you have the students also turn their desks to face wherever the desk was, or no? They would just stay?
When it was in the front, they faced it, but not when it was in the back.
No?
And I went up in front then to work with them.
Okay.
Oh, interesting. Did your students react differently or was it pretty consistent or
I think they were pretty consistent.
consistent? Okay, that's really interesting. We haven't come across a teacher who's done that before, so you had blackboards, correct?
Across the front, just like this.
Okay, all right. Did you have curtains on your windows?
I don't remember curtains.
Okay. But you had a stove, correct?
I had a furnace.
You had a furnace. You had a stove.
Mhm.
Did you have electricity? Lighting? You did.
Yes.
Did you?
I don't think so. I don't think we did.
Okay.
Mine had electricity.
Okay.
In fact, it had globes like this.
Oh, wow. Okay. Did you have pictures of Washington and Lincoln? The
No,
flag?
yes, did that. Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see here. What are we missing? Student desks. They looked very much like these, correct?
I did not have any double ones.
Okay. And they would sit in each grade, correct? Let's see. What are we missing here?
One other way you can ask this, and this is kind of fun. Can you walk us from your front door all the way around your classroom and key things you remember in the classroom itself?
Can you do what? Walk in the
So-
door and what?
In a verbal way, walk us through your school as you enter the door,
Oh.
throughout the classroom, key elements you remember in the schoolhouse, things like that.
Okay. I can't remember.
Well, I know that we turned left and there was a coat room, and also that's where the water container was, the drinking water. And each one brought their own cup. We did not drink out of the same dipper as they did in earlier days. Each one brought their own cup. And then in the front, it was the desks much like this school with the blackboard in the front. And originally the desk was up in front like this one is, and the flag up in front, and the pictures of George and Abe like this. Teacher's closet in the back. and there was a door to the basement, but it was not in the same position as this one. I don't remember exactly where the basement door was.
Mhm.
But windows much like this.
White walls, wallpaper.
They were painted, and as I recall, I think they were cream colored.
Cream color, okay. Interesting. You had materials, correct? You had like pencils, books.
I think they had to bring the pencils, their own pencils.
Mhm.
They brought
And they brought their books at the drugstore, I believe. Because they,
I wondered, I don't remember.
I believe
remember
at that
how.
time, the books were pretty much sold at the drugstore, and the county, of course, decreed what books there would be,
Mhm.
and they came to school with their books with them. And as I recall, they were bought at the drugstore.
So they had to buy books. You
Mhm.
didn't provide the books.
No,
Okay. So there wasn't an instance where you would have to switch out your books with the superintendent or anything?
not textbooks.
Not
No.
textbooks, but reading books?
Well, there was a small library, and I think those books were there, I'm not sure.
Mhm. Well, and the county superintendent would come, what, about every month or 6 weeks?
Oh, no, I just had once throughout the year.
Oh, he came more often than that, as I recall, but brought books and then took books back. I don't just remember how many times he did come, but I thought a couple of times anyway.
That could be, yeah.
Ernest P. Simmons was his name.
Ernest P. Simmons. Did you have the same superintendent?
Did I what?
You had the same superintendent?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Do you remember what that was like, having your superintendent visit? Did they just,
He was just in and out, he never really stayed
No,
much.
that's right.
didn't converse with you?
Well,
or-
yeah, a little bit, but I mean, he didn't stay and observe and spend a lot of time.
Okay. It's interesting.
And he had an assistant named Mildred Emerson, and she was really more help if you had a question than the county superintendent was.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember her?
No, I don't think she came
Mildred
with him.
Emerson? No, she never came.
Oh, she
If you
didn't.
had a problem, you went down to Toledo and could talk to her.
Oh,
Okay.
What kind of problems would that be?
Oh, if you were having problems maybe getting something across that you needed to help with, being sure that you were getting a point across or something, particularly maybe in math. I don't really remember that I had a lot of problems, but I remember going down to talk to her. She was very nice.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any problems that you encountered?
no,
No?
I didn't.
Okay. What about classroom behavior management? Did you have any discipline techniques or?
I didn't have any discipline problems at all, or any handicapped children either.
Okay.
I didn't really have any discipline problems either, except that before school had been on just too long. The corn was still green and in the fields. I had 3 boys, my 7th grader and a 3rd grader and one other, that decided that they would not come in after recess. And they went in the cornfield. I saw them go. I didn't say anything. I rang the bell again and they didn't come. So we went in and started school again. It was the 7th grader who was with them. I was not really worried that they were going to get lost in there.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, about 10 minutes later, in they walked. And I didn't say anything, but when school was out, I said, all right, now you wasted 10 minutes of your school time, so you will have to spend 10 minutes studying after school. And their parents brought them to school. I didn't have any children who walked.
No.
So I went out and told their parents that what they had done, and I said they will have to spend 10 minutes working on their work, and then they will be out. And that's what we did. I didn't scold them. I just said, I'm sorry, but this is how it is. And the 10 minutes after, they went out, and let me tell you, it never happened again. I'm guessing they all probably got in trouble big time. But I really didn't have any other problems with discipline.
But that was a sort of expectation, right? That if you
They
don't
were
come,
good kids, really.
yeah.
I did have a different situation than I think Darlene did. I had 2 children who were academically challenged, and I had never seen one before.
Now,
A third-
how did you approach teaching?
a 3rd grader and a 6th grader. But I was very fortunate. The 6th grader was a fairly high performing level. The 3rd grader, no. 2nd grader. And the people with parents of the 6th grader had taken her to Iowa City for a complete evaluation. And Iowa City had prepared a syllabus on how to teach her. It was probably about that thick. And they brought that to me. And it was like my Bible. It helped me so much to actually work with both of them. And so I think we were pretty successful.
What kind of lessons were in that book?
More was how to teach them, how to reach them. For instance, in order for my 6th grader to grasp something, it had to be repeated a minimum of 6 times. That kind of thing. And different ways to prepare lessons for her.
And so did you have any other sixth graders besides her?
Yes.
And did you teach her separately from the other
Yes.
6th graders? Okay.
Now some things they could do together. She was high, the one was high enough performing that I could do some things together.
Okay.
But she was interested in things like geography but like the math and so forth. She probably was at her maximum in 6th grade.
Nowadays, teachers have aides and certain support and help. You didn't have that back then.
No.
So when you had this student in class, I mean, how did you approach? You seem very confident that you, like, that was your Bible. You had a sort of aid given to you, but you didn't learn that in ISTC, correct?
No, I had rural observation, but no student teaching.
Okay.
We didn't, either one of us.
No, we did not.
But I think you probably went to rural observation too. I think we all had to.
Well, maybe we did. Yeah.
What sort of other expectations or rules or discipline techniques? I mean, did students have to raise their hand to go to the bathroom at all?
Yeah.
Did you have anybody help you bring in the coal? Like, did you have farm boys help you with any of those
No, because I
preparations?
had the oil burner.
Oh, right.
My school director took care of that. It was automatically there.
Okay. You said you had farm boys, correct? Now, did the farm boys ever have to leave school for harvest season and come back, or was there a case of that?
No, they
I don't remember that.
Okay. There are some schools that had these farm boys
Yeah.
leave for a few months.
Especially in earlier years.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay.
By the time we were teaching, the farmer had been more mechanized,
Yeah.
and it was not so necessary for them to stay home and help.
And my oldest boy was in 5th grade, so he wasn't that old to help, you know. So,
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your lessons, how you approached your day. How did you prepare for your day?
well, I don't remember. I can't remember what I did.
Well, they had workbooks.
Yeah.
And things that, were there ready for you to use, so that you didn't always have to prepare something.
Like lesson planning, did you have much of lesson planning, or?
Well, I'm sure I planned ahead, but I don't
We
remember
wrote
what I
lesson.
did.
I know I wrote lesson plans.
Yeah, and I wrote tests too.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
And for teaching reading, we used Scott Forsman, and I really relied on the manuals to teach reading.
What is Scott Forsman?
Scott Forsman was a publishing company. They're still today reading materials for them. This was the Dick and Jane books. Dick and Jane and Baby Sally and Spot and Puff.
Did you have those books a part of your?
They were in the library.
Okay.
Well, they were our textbooks. And we had one of the big ones up in front for kindergartners. They were about this wide and about this high. The pages that were identical to their primers. And they introduced the new vocabulary and so forth. They were really neat.
So you had reading. What other subjects did you teach?
Arithmetic and health. It was called health.
What sort of things would you teach about? What sort of things did you teach with the health subject?
Well, the usual things. To wash your hands before you eat and after you go to the bathroom, and I can't think what else.
Okay, so just kind of.
I think there was some about diseases too
Yeah.
that we had.
Like hygiene and cleanliness,
Right.
things like that.
Right.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Do you have math,
Spelling,
spelling?
penmanship.
Did you teach them to write cursive?
The little ones learned manuscript.
Okay.
And the third grade, we started cursive.
Okay. They're not
The
teaching
Palmer
it as much
method.
anymore.
Well, it depends on the school.
That is true.
How do you feel about that? The cursive writing starting to leave the curriculums in school.
How do I feel about that? I don't like it. I wish they would continue it.
Mm-hmm.
I do.
Yeah.
I feel that it should be continued in the schools for a couple of reasons. First of all, our historic documents are written in manuscript, in the cursive, and they're not going to be able to read them and to sign their names. I have a friend whose child received a letter that was written in cursive and they couldn't read it. The other thing is this, there's some new research out that shows that the cursive writing has an effect on the brain, which is important, and they need to do that. They need to learn to identify connecting those letters. And I think research is going to come around and they're going to say, hey, we need to do this for brain development of children.
Mm-hmm. We're starting to see major differences, right, between rural school education today, and that's starting to become a huge difference. With,
But some schools now are beginning to see that, and they are putting it back. In fact, in California, my kindergarten grandchild learned cursive starting in 4th grade.
4th grade.
He learned it before he learned manuscript. I thought that was very interesting.
But in your school, it was 3rd grade, correct?
3rd grade we started it.
And did you give them like the little sheets that had kind of like the dotted lines that they connected? Okay.
Right.
I remember doing
And we had the up above, they had both the manuscript and cursive. We've not been able to find them like that. We've hunted for them in this school, but we've not been able to find them.
So you would have your students come up, correct? Sit at the recitation bench. Did you have one?
I had chairs.
I had
chairs, so you didn't even have benches.
No.
We did not have a recitation bench.
Okay. But a child would come up one at a time?
Or that whole grade.
The whole
No
grade,
class.
okay.
Like my 3 3rd graders came all at once. And
Okay. So you would go through, how did that layout go? Did you go through each subject by one, or?
At different times, as I recall, first the reading, and then they would go back to their seats, and I'd have the rest of the reading come up, the rest of the class come up, and then they would go back to their seats. But then when that was all over, then an arithmetic would come.
Very much the same?
and you sent them back to their seats then with work to do. And if they had a problem when you were working with another class, some of the older kids would help them
Okay.
so that you could continue teaching, because your time was very limited. When you think that you had 9 grades and you were teaching every subject every day.
The interactions between the students, it went pretty well.
Yeah, I think
Did
so.
you remember?
Yeah.
Did you have music classes at all?
Good.
Piano?
Victrola.
Victrola, okay. Did you have?
Same here, and I sang, so I would sing with them.
Okay, that's lovely.
I want to jump in because I have some questions about a few of these things.
Yeah.
So when you did your spelling activities, was it more focused on being able to spell the word or knowing what the word actually meant?
At that time, it was more on spelling it.
Okay,
And the words that they were spelling were words that would have been in their vocabulary.
okay. And when it came to music, did you ever utilize radio or UNI songbooks to do the music education?
No, I didn't.
No.
Okay.
I had the books that were recommended by UNI, or Iowa State Teachers College at the time, where they learned actually to start to read music.
Perfect.
They wrote learning
Okay,
in some of
perfect.
the songbooks.
Not that big.
No?
No? Okay.
I have some of them back here in my library right now.
Take a look after it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right.
And we did seasonal too, Christmas songs and fall songs and, seasonal songs.
I'm guessing the traditional Christmas program was a big deal for both of you?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And I'll let you run with that one later, because I know it's on your list. I was just curious.
Yeah, no. So in terms of your lessons, were there any requirements that you had to abide by? Or did you have more autonomy in your lesson planning?
No one ever told me what to do or how to handle it. It was all my own thinking.
Well, yes, and we had the textbooks that we were expected to get through. That was our curriculum.
So in terms of going into teaching in a consolidated school, did that change for you?
Not particularly.
Not particularly? Okay.
Later on, when I was just teaching science, I was allowed to create my own units and teach based on what the state required at each level at that time. But I was allowed to create my own units, and I could then make a progressive from 4th, 5th, and 6th, which was lots of fun.
You enjoyed that? Good deal. Let's see here. I had a question. Did you have exam grading? Did you made your own tests, correct? And you graded them? Okay.
Yes.
Do you remember what that was like? Writing the tests? Did you have any requirements, or again, did you have sort of that autonomy?
No one ever told me what to do. I was surprised, but yeah.
And we just created our tests to go with what the curriculum was that they'd been studying. Whatever was in their textbooks, we made the tests to go with it.
And then did you give them grades from like A to an F?
They did report cards.
Okay, and were they based on like a 100, 90, 80 scale or?
They were A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
A, B, C, D, and so there wasn't any like points involved or anything like that?
No.
No?
I don't recall that we were given any criteria with percentages like an A is 92 to 100 and that kind of thing. I don't recall that we were ever given that. I think we used our own judgment.
I think so too.
Okay. Did you give out homework?
I didn't.
No homework?
No.
Okay. Let's see here. Oh, I remember what I was going to ask. What were your favorite subjects to teach and your least favorite subjects to teach?
I didn't have a favorite. I didn't.
I don't think I did either.
But you enjoyed them all?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You had your own desk, correct? Oh, how did you structure your student schedules? How did you structure the day? Did it begin with a particular subject?
Yes, I think I did. Yeah.
Do you remember what subject that was?
It seems to me it was reading, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure what.
I always began with reading. They all had their reading classes. And then I think we went to math.
Yeah, right.
Went to math. And then after, did you go to lunch or?
I think that we did language arts yet in the morning.
Language arts, okay.
And then we had lunch. We brought our own lunch and all ate together.
What did students typically eat back then?
Sandwiches and fruit.
Yeah, yeah.
And some had thermoses with milk.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Or thermoses with something hot in it. That would kept it hot, like soup or something.
Now in my school, the mothers sent something hot during the winter. The kids would bring a bucket with maybe a soup in or something, and I had a hot plate.
Oh.
And they each had their own bowl. And so we had a hot lunch.
Okay. Very similar for the teachers too?
Did what?
Very similar for teachers as well?
Yeah, we all got to have some too.
So that lunch at around noon, correct? And you an hour-long lunch with recess or?
Yeah, it was an hour long.
And then we went outside and played.
Played those games?
We had a morning recess and an afternoon recess.
Oh, you did? Okay. And then you came back from recess and you began again with music or?
I read to my students. We had a little rest time, and after lunch for maybe 20 minutes or so, I read to them. I tried to find something that would interest all of them. And I read to them for a little while, every day.
No, it seems to me we had music in the morning. I'm not sure.
I don't remember either for sure, but
Yeah.
I think I had music in the afternoon, but I don't remember for sure.
And school would end typically at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock,
4.
4 o'clock,
It was 9 to 4.
9 to 4.
I thought it was 9 to 3:30, but I'm not sure
Mine
about
went
that.
to 4.
Did you have any end of the day duties as teachers?
I swept the floor.
Mm-hmm.
You had to do that. That's really all I can
And
think of.
empty the wastebasket.
Oh, yeah.
And on Fridays, we really cleaned. The kids would clean the erasers, take the erasers out and pound them. And I had 2 7th graders that loved to do the outhouse. I never understood that, but they always wanted to do the sweeping of the outhouses every Friday. And during the warm weather, every so often, they would scrub the outhouses.
Ambitious kids.
I never swept the outhouse. The kids always did it.
Oh, wow.
So you had them help you out with cleaning quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Did your students ever help you with cleaning?
Not that I remember, no.
Was there anything else that your students helped you out with?
No, not,
Did they carry in the water?
I don't remember if we even had a pump. I thought maybe I brought the water.
Oh, well, I had a pump and the kids would bring in the water.
Mhm.
The older, particularly our 7th and 8th graders, would carry the water in the water bucket each day.
So what would a typical teacher wear to school? What was a typical attire?
It was dresses and skirts. I never wore slacks.
No socks?
Oh, no.
We dressed pretty much like we did in college.
Mhm.
During the warm weather, I wore skirts and blouses or a dress, and I wore saddle shoes and bobby socks. Or loafers, and when it got colder, then I had skirts and sweaters, pleated skirts and sweaters, pretty much like what I wore to go to school at Iowa State Teachers College. In fact, probably not too much different from the kids. I did have a salesman come one day and knock on the door, and I went to the door, and he looked at me and he said, "Could I see the teacher, please?" And I said, "You're looking at him." You really? Because as I say, I had 3 of my kids were taller than I was, and so he was a little surprised, I guess.
And what did the students wear? Did they
Well,
sort
the
of
boys
dress-
wore blue jeans.
Yeah.
So
I
there was
think the girls wore dresses. I don't think they wore slacks.
No,
no uniform or anything
No,
like that.
no,
Just kind
no.
of wore whatever to
Mhm.
class.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look nice.
Yeah.
Presentable.
Look presentable.
Do you remember the best day you had in class?
I don't
Any
remember.
memory that jumps out at you?
No.
I think one of the best days I had was when I heard that my 8th grader had passed her 8th grade exams. We had worked almost every night after school from after Christmas vacation on, working, reviewing to be sure that she would be ready. And so you wanted to be sure that your students could pass that test, because if they didn't, it was a reflection on them and a reflection on you. And we worked so hard, and I think one of the best days was knowing that she had passed that test.
So you actually had night study sessions,
After school.
After school?
We would work like half an hour.
half an hour?
Mm-hmm.
And that was your 1/8, you had one? Okay.
And we used a series called Warp's Review Books. They were very difficult, and we had them for every subject. And we used those to review, to be sure that they knew what they needed to know. In fact, I have a set of them here also on the
Oh,
desk.
great, okay.
Mhm.
Look at those. Did you have any 8th
I
graders?
didn't have an 8th
You
graders,
didn't have
no.
any 8th graders.
No.
Do you remember what you reviewed for the 8th grade exams? I mean, what were the subjects on the 8th grade
Well,
exam?
math,
Mm-hmm.
civics, that was an important one. Government, language arts, particularly grammar, punctuation, was a big one. that I particularly remember, and also map reading.
Did you have any maps like hanging up in the classroom or?
Like we have hanging over here, I had a full set of them. Did you have that too?
I
Set
had,
of
yes,
maps?
a set of maps,
The
yeah.
kind that you pull down and then make them go back up and kind of pull
Right.
on them again?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you know where she had to go take her 8th grade exam
They went to Toledo,
Toledo.
to the county seat.
to kind of see it?
Mhm.
And what time of the year did they do that?
Right at, toward the end of May.
Towards the end of May? Okay.
I don't know what week in May, but I remember it was in May,
Mhm.
like maybe the second week or so.
And then if they failed that exam, would they have to come back and do 8th grade again?
Well,
Or?
they could, I don't remember if they did an 8th grade over or I think they could take it again, I think. But I think if they didn't pass, they had to do 8th grade again, unless they were 16.
But you didn't. Your student passed.
Yeah,
so you
She
didn't.
passed. With
So then she
flying
went on
colors.
to high school after that?
Yes.
Okay.
She came here to high school. No, I think she went to Cloutier. That was the town they were closest to.
Okay.
Okay. And that was like a public school?
Mhm,
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Did you ever keep in contact with her after she went to?
Oh, yes. She lives
Okay.
here in town now. I play bridge with her every so often.
Really? Do either of you keep in contact with a lot of your students or?
I don't.
No?
The one that was probably the closest to me, he passed away, and no, I don't know where any of the kids are.
3 of the girls from one family I still have contact with. 2 of them live in the community, and 1 lives in Waterloo. In fact, a couple weeks ago, we were all together at a funeral.
Oh.
So I do keep in contact with them.
It's really great that you keep in contact with them. It's so awesome that you still talk to them after school.
And one of my students, the one that was a 2nd grader that was educationally challenged, lives on a farm west of town here, and I see him every once in a while at the grocery store.
What does that feel like, seeing your former students? Does it bring back memories, or, I mean...
Well, I don't know.
Oh, I really enjoy it, seeing them and keeping track of what they've done and so forth.
It's that tight-knit community, right? The rural school community.
Like a
Yeah,
family.
it really, a country school is a lot like a family. There is a special relationship.
So it didn't feel more like you're my student and I'm your teacher. It was kind of like we're all working together, not necessarily like a.
Well, it was a teacher-student relationship, but still, I think it was a friendly relationship, don't you, Darlene?
Oh, yeah, it was friendly.
Yeah.
Very
Yes.
community, tight knit.
Did you ever interact with the parents of your students?
No, I can't say that I did. No.
I did. I was invited to a lot of their homes, and other than that, just greeting them when they bring their children and come and get them.
You were invited to their homes for
Supper.
Supper? Okay. You never stayed with them, though.
I did the one family.
You did
My 8th grader, she had a 6th grader sister, and they invited me to stay several times. We had a lot of fun.
So you would spend the night or something? Okay.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you would interact with them too on like the Christmas, they were invited to the Christmas program, right?
Right.
Big crowd.
Big crowd?
Big crowd. Did everybody's families come out for those?
Everybody went.
Did everybody's families come out
Oh, yeah.
for those?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
Lot of
re-
preparation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the program at all? Did you create the program?
I didn't create it, but I just remember that each student had something to say, or as a group they had something to say, but I don't remember anything more about it. Yeah.
Well, I decided to do something a little different with mine, and we did a play. It was called Christmas Comes to Grandpa, and it was pretty cute. The kids had a lot of fun doing it. They learned their parts, and they all had a part, and then we sang Christmas songs. Santa Claus came and they had treats.
So you organized that. Did you have the radio play? Did you play on the piano for singing?
I don't remember the songs. I think we just sang.
You just sang in front of
No instrumental accompaniment.
Do you remember any other certain programs in your school or what your school was used for? Like elections or?
No, I don't think it was used for anything other than school.
Mine wasn't either at that time.
Okay. Do you know what happened to your school? Is it still standing?
No,
or?
it's not standing, it's torn down.
Mine's torn down too. It was kind of a shame.
So after they just closed, it never went through consolidation?
No.
No.
Well, the whole area became consolidated. And the school, I don't know if it went on a couple more years after I didn't teach. I don't know for sure.
Okay.
Then it was torn down.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Is there anything else on the area now, or is it just
It's farm field.
farm?
It's farm field.
Let's see here. Well, you never went through consolidation, but were there many teachers in your community? All female teachers?
No,
or
I can't say there were any.
just you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you two were fairly close to each other in this area. Did you ever keep in contact? Like you kept in contact with
yes.
each other? Okay. Did you ever
Once in a
compare
while,
notes?
once in a while, we got together if we were working on some problem at the same time. I remember one time we got together and did some math.
Oh.
You remember that?
No, I
Yeah.
don't remember that.
You and Thelma and I got together and there was some math that was hard. And I remember we got together and worked on it. The three of us.
Oh, you had sort of a support system.
Yeah, we were supporting each other.
Yeah.
So you would sort of compare, would you ever compare lesson plans or sort of like
Not
be like,
really.
oh, I'm doing this with my students?
I should have done more, probably.
I don't remember that we did much.
Let's see here. Well, this was 50-51, correct? So there weren't really larger world events going on so much. This was after the war, correct?
After the World War II, but the beginning of the Korean War.
Yes.
Because my husband went in 50,
Okay.
and that's when I was teaching.
Did that impact your rural school experience?
No.
No?
No.
But, so you weren't, when you were at ISTC, that was after the war too, then? Do you remember in high school though? Do you remember how the war impacted your high school experience?
I don't think
No,
it did.
because it was over pretty much by the time when we graduated from 8th grade, 1945.
Oh, okay.
But during the time when we were in the grade school, definitely.
Do you remember what that was like?
I don't remember.
Well, I remember that taking our money to school to buy more stamps to put in our book to buy bonds.
Yeah.
Money left over from when my mother took the eggs to town and used the money to buy groceries on Saturday. If there was money left, she gave it to us on Monday. And we went then to, they had a store set up where you could buy war stamps and put them in your book. And then when you got it full, you bought a bond with it.
Okay.
And in my school, we had to take first aid. I don't know what we were to do with it, but in 6th grade, we had to take first aid because it was the thing to do for the war effort. You learned first aid.
And was that the whole class that learned that? Okay.
We all had to do it.
Interesting.
Did you felt a sense of heightened patriotism while you were in school during the war?
I don't remember at the time what.
Yeah, I think so. I remember President Roosevelt's fireside chats every Sunday night, and we listened on the radio. And we would go to the movie on Saturday night in a neighboring town, and before the movie started, they had the newsreels from the war, and I remember them very vividly.
So your husband was in the Korean War?
Right.
Your community, were there any other service members?
Oh, yeah.
Many.
Oh, yeah.
Did the fathers of any of your students go?
Did the what?
The fathers of any of your students?
No.
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 Most of them were probably too old.
Oh, okay.
So you taught until what year?
51.
51, and then you continued, correct?
Yeah, I substituted for 10 years. I taught one the next year here in town, and then I substituted for 10 years. Then I went back to full-time,
Okay.
except for the 2 years when I went back to college.
Why did you stop teaching?
Well, because we were married and left the state.
What did you do after teaching then?
I worked at the post office.
Post office?
Yeah,
Okay.
as a clerk.
Where did you move to?
We moved to Alabama. Is that what you mean?
Alabama? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Worked in the post office, and then you stopped teaching, and then you did,
I went back to teaching.
oh right, back to teaching.
Yeah, for the 10 years, I stayed at home with my children and just did subbing.
But you missed it so much, huh?
Well, I hoped to go back someday, but not as soon as they needed a teacher. But I had hoped to go back someday.
Did you find that the profession had changed very much?
Not a lot when I first went back, but through the years it changed a lot. A lot more paperwork, a lot more meetings. I think that that actually, we had a lot more teacher in-service training, which I think helped us a lot. And a lot more courses were offered in the evenings. Like, I got a lot of hours in after-school classes that I took. Like, there were some taught here, some taught over in Vinton.
In-service training? What was in-service training?
Well, learning better methods of teaching.
Oh, okay.
Better methods of teaching. And also, some of the most valuable ones that I had were how children learn. Learning styles and how to reach each child according to their learning style.
Very different from your rural school experience. A lot more structure, a lot more oversight.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. What do you miss about teaching?
I can't say I missed anything because I wasn't in it long enough to miss anything.
I miss the kids and
Oh,
I miss
yeah, that-
and I miss the teachers here in town teaching. I miss the teachers that I worked with. I had a great group of teachers that were on my team. I was part of a team, and I miss those people.
So you found that having like that really close support system of other teachers was really helpful
Yes.
versus at the rural school where you were pretty much by yourself.
I would have to say that for me, I did have one rural school teacher that if I needed help with something, I could contact her. She was wonderful, and she was helpful to me.
Was she very far away, or?
She was over just south of Traer, which
South of
was
Traer.
like 9 miles.
Okay. And she was in a one-room schoolhouse too?
She taught for many years.
Okay. Did you ever visit that schoolhouse?
I visited her, but not to go to her school
Not
because
school.
I was always in school when she was.
Right. Let's see here. Did you dislike anything about teaching?
No, I can't say that I did dislike anything.
I disliked keeping the records that you had to keep on attendance, average daily attendance and all that. It was a pain. And we had to do it for rural school, and then we had to do it in town school too. And everything had to balance. And I spent many hours over those books. And I did not enjoy that.
So you had the books, you had the daily attendance, grades too?
I don't remember the grades in it. But those books are still on file at Area 7, or 267, at least I knew, the last I knew, they were on file. And I don't know if they went to the museum or not. They may have well gone to the museum.
Okay. Might have to.
Those records are still in place, as I understand it.
Now, often in these books that we see on the back, there's certain explaining of what you did during the day, how the day was structured, recommendations on like the upkeep of the school. Was that very similar to what you had to fill out too? And then it was signed by the superintendent?
I don't remember that.
No, I don't either.
Okay. Might have been much earlier in time.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Was there a situation that you found most hardest, like the hardest situation that you faced as a teacher? Do you remember that instance at all?
Afraid I don't.
No?
Not that I can think of. The only real problem that I remember running into, the county superintendent we had programs, at first when we were going to start teaching in that school year, suggested that when students in the same general age level would reach the same topic, that you put them together and teach it. For instance, when my 7th and 8th grader, it happened in their math books, they both were on a chapter on banking. And it was new to the 7th grader and a review for the 8th grader. And I put them together, and so they could spend twice as much time with them. And I thought it was really, what we were supposed to do. And my school director just took me over the coals for it. I was cheating her 7th grade child out of, I was holding her back because the 8th grader didn't know what to do. And I was crushed.
Oh, really?
She just didn't understand, and I thought I was doing just what I was supposed to do. But that was really the only real problem that I ran into.
So then you had to interact with the parent, correct?
Yeah, I got scolded.
Oh my. Was that the toughest situation you had with a parent?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I did have one other that was interesting. I had a little boy that happened to bring garlic sandwiches to school, and it was in the fall in October, and we had a hot spell, and the school directors had put the storm windows on. I couldn't get the windows open, and it was hot in there, and that little boy had garlic sandwiches. And the room got it was pretty awful. And the kids would sit by him, and the little kid was so sad, big tears running down his eyes. Miss Weaver, nobody will sit by me, and I don't know why. And we went outdoors and we played outside the rest of the afternoon. So when his mother came to get him, I said I would suggest maybe that he not have garlic sandwiches. I said it caused him grief, and she was very nice about it. We didn't have garlic sandwiches anymore.
Oh my.
Now it's humorous, but that day it was not.
Right.
Heartbreaking.
So how do you remember your former students as a whole? Do you remember any particular students, or?
I don't know. I remember them as that age, because I didn't see them after I taught school, was done with it,
Mm-hmm.
But no, I don't remember.
Okay.
Well, I just remember them as all really good kids.
Yeah.
That's
Good families, and most of mine were of Czech descent. And that was interesting to learn to say the names and so forth.
Oh, this was a very Czech community?
Mine was, most of my children. Except for just one or two families, they were all Czech families.
Okay. Did they speak Czech, or?
They did at home, some of them did at home, I think.
But that didn't transfer to
No.
school? No?
But some of them did have an accent.
Okay.
My 7th graders particularly had an accent.
Oh, the older.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think my 8th grader did too, had an accent.
Mm-hmm. But they could speak English.
Oh
quite
yes,
well.
very
Yes.
well.
Even the parents.
But you could just tell in their speech a little bit
Mm-hmm.
that just slightly.
Did your community have a sort of
No, I have no Czech.
no Czech,
No.
no German, or?
Well, some of them maybe were German, but I don't think they spoke German.
Mm-hmm.
Kids did not. So.
Okay. So let me ask you this question: how do you think your students remember you?
I don't know.
Well, I don't know. They're still real friendly when I see them today. Those that I'm able to interact with.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Are you comfortable talking about how much you earned as a teacher? Your salary?
I think it was $235 a month.
I think so. It was $225 or $235,
Yeah.
something like that.
$225.
And I had to go up on payday. I went up to the director's house, the secretary of the school board, and got my check.
Okay, you had to
I
go
don't
get your
remember
check.
how I got it.
I had to go up and get it.
Yeah,
In consolidated school, did your salary change at all, or
It went up some.
significantly, or some?
Not significantly, no.
Interesting. How much did teachers typically earn? Was that common? 230? Was that very
I
common?
would say 2
Yeah,
and a quarter.
right.
Okay.
And so was that just like a set monthly wage? There wasn't like an hourly wage or anything?
No, there
It
was
was
not.
just
In
set.
high school, there
Okay.
was not.
How did you feel about your salary? Did you feel it was right? Did you?
I did.
Yeah, I didn't have any problems with it. I was able to pay my rent, make my car payment, and
It was very livable. Very livable.
it was fine.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay. How does rural school education impact the education systems in place today, do you think? Do you think that rural school system kind of lingered on until today, or do you think there are major similarities, major differences?
I'm not sure how to answer
Yeah,
that.
I know, it was.
I think the basic philosophy of rural school education and its importance in educating children in a democratic country, I think that still holds today. Our farm families early were they felt education was very important. And I think that concept, particularly in our rural communities, still holds today.
Would you agree?
I agree.
And some of the things that we did, taking each child where they are and going on with them, those concepts are still important today.
What do you think are some of the biggest changes in education over the years?
The biggest changes. Well, there's a lot of changes from the country school to the elementary. Just being a group of the same age children. That's what I think.
I think some of the biggest differences are in technology, the use of technology today, and also the problems with discipline in our schools. There wasn't a lot of discipline problem in my early days of teaching, and I don't see that now. The teachers, complaining about it, and not that I think you should go out and beat children, ever, but I think that we've come too far, and the classrooms are such today that a lot of times teachers are too busy with disciplining to be able to teach. And also the number of meetings and stuff that you have. We got to the point where we said in our middle school when I was teaching there, if they would just leave us alone and let us teach. And sometimes I think they've gotten a little carried away on that. But now, of course, you have days off for in-service. Back when I first went back into teaching, your meetings were at the end of the day. I remember some of them staying at meetings until 6 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
So that was a big difference when collective bargaining came in and they said, hey, teachers can have to spend so many hours a day, and if you want us to do in-service, you have a special day for it. Which, as long as it's something worthwhile, fine. But sometimes we just thought, oh, just let us teach.
Also, today there are teacher workshops or teacher workshop days. You didn't have those back then in rural school.
No.
Did you have them in consolidated school?
Oh, in later years, yes.
Later years? What were those days like? Did you interact with other teachers? Did you work on lesson planning? Or?
Usually it was a combination. You'd have some meetings maybe with speakers, and then you'd have time to work on your preparations. And we worked together a lot on units that you were working, like something that maybe you would work on with science and social studies. and reading together, working together
Okay.
to kind of correlate, make more meaning.
Mhm.
Sort of connecting them in a way.
What?
Sort of connecting them in a way.
Mhm.
Okay.
Integrating curriculum.
Another big difference, sick days today. If you had a sick day in rural school, did you ever have a sick day?
I never had a sick day.
I didn't either.
No? Okay. Do you know what teachers would have to do if but they showed up every day, right?
Yeah,
Old school teachers?
Yeah, we did, just because we had to.
Yeah, I never was sick.
No,
so
no.
not a problem.
Was there any time that weather made it so that you couldn't show up?
I can't
Or-
think of a day that we called it off because of weather.
No, sometimes the snow was pretty deep,
Mhm.
but no.
And did you ever have to like shovel or anything like that, or did you all just kind of plow up to there?
Well, I shoveled the walk to get, up to the schoolhouse door.
All right, yeah, that's right.
But you still.
But I
can't-
think when it was really, really snowy, I think my school director, came and did some of that. I don't recall that I ever had to do a whole lot of it. I think it was done when I got to school.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, nice not having to do it yourself.
In your opinion, what are some of the biggest challenges that students face today
Biggest challenges.
compared to your rural school experiences?
What do you think? I can't think of anything.
Well, I think for our secondary kids, particularly deciding what they want to do with their lives, there are so many options, and the cost of education being so great. What are they going to do with their lives? In rural schools, they only went to 8th grade, and it was not, the options there was, am I going to go to high school, or am I going to stay home and work on the farm? It's a different time.
Well, they also had similar testing, right? The 8th grade exams, standardized testing today. Those are pretty similar challenges that students faced. Let's see here. What lessons did you learn from this time in your life?
Hard work.
Mm-hmm.
I think self-sufficiency.
Yeah.
You were on your own.
Yeah, right. I remember, this is off the subject, but evidently the night before when I was sweeping the floor, I evidently pushed the lever that lets the oil run into the tank or the burner. And the next morning I lit it and it just roared because there was so much fuel in it. And I got the kids out of school and went up to the neighbors. It eventually burned out, but that's one thing I remember about that. It wasn't very funny at the time. I was pretty shook up.
Yeah. But you all had to stand outside and wait.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Any other memories, sporadic memories, or?
I had one. In the area where I was, there was a lot of hunting done in the fall. And the week the hunting season opened, I was not to let the kids go outdoors because and you would hear rifles or gunshots. And so we stayed inside for particularly that first week. Then it leveled off and it was not a problem. But I was not to let the kids to go outside for recess during that first week of hunting season.
Who told you that?
School director.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So that, from the top, they told you that.
Our school director said, no, don't go outside. And it was good advice.
That's very smart.
So were you close to a forested area then?
No, it was all farmland.
Oh, all the around in farmland.
They'd be out in
Okay.
the cornfields hunting pheasants.
Oh.
They had to play dodgeball in the basement, huh?
Those were days we did not go outside.
What are some of the most important takeaways you want people to remember about your teaching experience?
I can't think of anything.
I think they need to know that rural school kids for the times in which they lived, if they had a good teacher, could get a really good education.
Mm-hmm.
I think about it, the kids that went on to high school from rural schools and were valedictorians of their classes and did very, very well. I know there were some rural school teachers that were not as proficient, but where there was a good teacher, those kids learned.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the little ones learn from the older ones. And I think they still got a very good basic education.
Mm-hmm. Anything else you want to add?
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, let's see here. Is there anything, do you have anything else?
I was going to ask you, did you, because you said that you had a 3-year-old and you went back to teaching, did you ever find it difficult to sort of balance like the work with your responsibilities at home with your kids? And
Well, sometimes I spent a lot of late hours after my kids went to bed because every night I had work to correct, there was work to do. And I was up very early in the mornings. It was tough, but I had a very supportive family, and we made it work.
This was after where, because teachers, they used to require to have single female teachers, right?
Right.
So you're in the era where married teachers could actually teach.
That's right.
Yeah. So that, asking about that balance, that's really interesting. That, yeah, that was a new kind of way of life for teachers in a sense. But you quit after your
Right.
first year,
That's
and then you
right.
went and raised a family.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you know of any other teachers in your area who did that? Either quit?
Well, was one of the 3 of us. She lives in Dysart too.
And she taught, she was married too then, and her husband was at school at Iowa State, and she taught at the town of Gilbert while he was in college, and then they went into service, and then she didn't teach anymore. And I don't believe she ever subbed either. She was busy with raising her family.
Do you remember what the name of her school was at all? Did she ever talk about that?
It was Clarkmont or something. It was
Yeah.
the same township as you were. But I
Yeah,
don't remember which one.
I don't remember which one it would be.
And her name?
Thelma Park Grant.
Emma Hartman.
And she and I were roommates.
Oh, okay.
So that's how I got to Dysart and how I met Darlene.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Well, is there anything else you would like to add? Anything that comes to mind?
No, I don't think so.
No?
I have 2 questions.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
it's 2. So, as a teacher, how did the community relate to you, talk to you? What was your role within the local community itself?
I don't think I had any comments on it at all.
Okay. You didn't have to be careful where you went, what you drank, ate, nothing like that?
Well, it wasn't a problem.
I
Wasn't
didn't think
okay.
about it.
Okay,
It
perfect.
was not a problem for us.
Perfect. And coming from the rural school side, what were your thoughts on schools consolidating? Were you a fan of it, or were you sad to see them close?
Well, it was just going to close and couldn't do anything about it.
Okay.
It was a sign of the times. Farmers, there weren't as many children on the farms, and when the schools got down to the point where there were either 4 or 5 children, there was no point in keeping them open. It was something that just happened naturally because of what was happening on farms.
Perfect. Thank you.
And it was sort of sad in a way. It was an era that disappeared, but that was life.
And you don't remember when your schools closed down or
I think mine did in 51.
51? Oh,
Yeah.
so you were the last teacher
I
of your
think
school.
so.
I think maybe I was too, but most of them, I think, in Tama County were closed down by the late 50s.
Late 50s in Tama County? Well, you had quite a high number of students though in your one-room schoolhouse for them to
I
close.
did.
Yeah.
How many did you have?
15.
Yeah, and I think I had 12, something like that, 11 or 12.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
But do you remember, so we're not very familiar with this area and it consolidated into what school district?
It's Union now.
Union?
It was Dysart. Dysart
Now, the
consolidated.
kids that were in my school went to Cloutier,
Right, yeah.
and a lot, the elementary ones, I think, went to Cloutier and then to Traer. And in high school, they had a choice of where they wanted to go. And some of them came here to Dysart, and some of them, I think, went to Traer.
Was busing provided for the students, do you know?
After consolidation, yes. Those children who graduated from the country schools before consolidation could go to have their choice, and the tuition was paid for them, but they had to provide their own transportation.
Okay. And they didn't have busing to rural school, correct?
No.
No.
The district part of it was consolidated, buses ran there, but the kids that were still in the country school districts had to provide their own transportation. My husband drove to high school for 4 years.
I'm sure a lot of kids walk to school too, right? Or were they all?
They were all, none of my kids walked. Did any of yours walk?
I don't think so.
No. Their parents brought them and came and got them.
Well, anyone have any other questions? No? Okay, well, thank you so much, ladies.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
This was fun. Was it fun to go down memory lane?
Well, yeah,
yes.
I remember.
I'm sure you share a lot of your stories here too at the school, your programming.
Right, and we have country school day here. We've had it for 3 years. We have the kids come, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, and they spend a day. And we have a rotating curriculum. And they have their costumes that we made for them with their aprons and sunbonnets, and the boys have vests and straw hats. And we have country school.
How did the students react? How
They
did the
love
kids-
it.
They love it?
They love it.
We want to try to do that at our schoolhouse actually. So I saw the newspaper articles over here, and I thought that was
Yeah,
that was
our
incredible.
costumes are in there if you want to see them. Our teacher we made one for the teacher also.
So the teacher does also dress up. Okay.
Right.
Awesome.
And our 3-year curriculum, we have, the first one is based on the orphan train. And this is one of the things they did. They marked every county, how many orphan train stops there were between 1854 and 1921 was the last that they came to Iowa. And so this is one of the things that they did. And then they did a play, a Reader's Theater, on the orphan train experience as a mother and as children on the train and so forth. And the second year, it's the life in the country school in the 1890s. And we featured from farm to the table, particularly because we have an agriculture museum too. And then the third year was the life on the prairie in the 1850s and 1860s.
Oh wow. Did you research?
Oh, we did a lot of research. And the first 2 years we did have professional teacher. And now this next, let's see, the first year's trying to think. We had a gal who was at Iowa State. The next 2 years we had a professional teacher. And now this next year we have a girl who will be a senior at Iowa State in elementary ed will be teaching.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
And you have an entire curriculum written up and everything, and she just has to
We have,
follow that.
and we have the textbooks. The second year, we used the Little House on the Prairie books. We chose which ones were most appropriate, and those were our textbooks. Otherwise, we have other textbooks that we have bought that are actually storybooks, and they use those as the basis for their. And they go on a field trip to the machine shed and the historical museum, and that's part of their curriculum too, is to their field trips. And we fix their lunch. It has to be traditional. We don't have wax. We don't use plastics or anything like that. We fix their lunch like they would have had.
So it's basically like they're coming here and they're having that rural school experience.
And they go outside and play the country school games.
That's awesome.
Got a few pictures up there of the kids playing. And they go out and eat their lunch in the courtyard.
And you said they love it.
They love it.
And it's 5th graders, 6th
Fourth,
grade?
fifth, and sixth.
4th, 5th, and 5th?
Mhm.
4th, 5th, and 6th. Okay, cool. That's
I'm
great.
sorry.
So sweet.
Yeah, fourth, fifth, and sixth.
Okay.
They will be fourth, fifth, and sixth in the fall.
Okay, okay. Great. And do you find like that age group is probably the best to do that with? Or do you think that like all ages could benefit from it?
I think that's the best.
That's the best?
Mhm.
Okay. Because I was trying to think of what age groups to do because I worked with the Girl Scouts like last year and they do have different age groups and I was wondering if 8th graders would be interested in it at all, if they think they were
I
too
don't
cool
know.
for it.
I don't know. It depends on your curriculum.
Yeah, I was thinking of changing the curriculum up for the age level and making it more immersive and kind of more difficult as they got older. But
This year,
Yeah.
they fixed lunch for their parents. We have a program where the parents and grandparents come. And this year, they made lemonade from scratch and made homemade ice cream for their parents. Last year, they made butter and were able to take, and they had butter and homemade bread, and they were able to take their homemade butter home to their parents, their families. It was good.
Oh,
so cute.
Keep in mind at a certain point, kids lose the imagination side, so getting dressed up is embarrassing, it's not cool.
Yeah, yeah. I was,
We've ran across that too.
Yeah, yeah. The 8th graders, they would, if I asked them to put on costumes, they'd be like, no, I'm going into high school next year, I'm too cool for this.
Well, country schools were a big deal in Iowa. I was known as the country school capital of the United States because we had more than any other state. I think in 1900 there were over 12,000 country schools in Iowa.
Yeah.
I counted Tama County and I counted up around 125.
And what year was that?
The one I have over there is 1873.
Okay.
wow.
I have them all marked and in red, and I tried to count, and I kind of lost count, but it was at least 120.
Wow.
Wow.
And you multiply that by 99 counties, it was a big
Wow.
deal.
You located those?
They're on the map. On that map, there's a little country school where every one is. I colored them in red for Tama County and Benton.
Okay.
See, we sit on the county line. You go across the road out here and you're in Benton County, so I did both.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I colored them in red. And it's amazing, just amazing.
How did you find that?
I happen to have, my folks had an 1873, it was a reproduction of an Atlas of Iowa. It has all the counties and all the country schools are located
Oh,
in
wow.
that book.
Huh.
Awesome.
Very nice.
There's all the ghost towns that are ghost towns now
Right,
around there
right.
and all that. What was in 1873? It's amazing.
Well, efforts like yours, it's what's keeping country school, those experiences and that life alive still. And thank goodness for people like you. I mean, you have a beautiful schoolhouse.
We're
very
really
lucky.
proud of it. And the people who gave it are thrilled.
The original sandbox.
That sandbox was original to this building.
That's very cool. Sorry, I'm looking around and seeing all these little.
One of the students, though, that had gone to school here told me that was in the basement, and so they didn't get to play with it every day. But a lot of them had sandboxes on the main floor, and then like the little kids, when they got their work done, go play in the sandbox. We put a cover over it so we wouldn't have sand all over the floor.
Right. Good thinking. Well, thank you again so much.
Yeah, thank
We
you.
were so excited to come here today.
You say this is your first one?
This is my first one that I actually asked like a lot of questions.
Okay.
And, previously, I just sort of sat and listened to Laura ask the questions, but
I do have one thing I'd like to share with you before you go. In our agriculture building, I want you to look at our timeline, because it's part of education too.
Yes.
Country schools and so forth are on the timeline. And I think, when Bill Sherman was here with our tour, he was here with a tour a couple weeks ago, he said, there's nothing in Iowa like this.
Oh, we're gonna
You
have to
need to
look
see
at
it.
that. Yeah. Could you show us? give us a little tour or something, or if
Yeah,
up
you
to
want
it?
to see that, you'll want to see that building.
Okay.
The machine shed is not heated and it's cold, but
Okay, so just before I forget, because I have a problem with this. So these are our consent forms here, basically just outlining what the purpose of the interview is, what we will be doing. If you could sign this for us, we would be greatly,
I'm
be
signing
grateful
this
for
one,
it.
is that the same one?
Oh, you got it. Okay, you already got one. Good deal.
I'll get a pen.
So what we're doing with these interviews is that we're actually putting them online on a new website that we're creating, where we're putting this, like I said earlier, this was a 30-year project, and we're putting all our videos onto one space now.
Oh,
As long as you're talking about country schools, you should be familiar with the Latta book. Have you heard of the Latta book?
Actually have not heard of that.
Well, the J.S. Latta Company was the big thing, place to go for school supplies beginning in the early 1900s. And they put out a catalog, and particularly it was useful for rural schools. I can get it out so you can see it. We are so lucky to have it.
all you need.
You're in trouble.
Thank you so much. What?
As a whole people, you should know that book.
Nobody's ever mentioned it.
You have one in your space.
You
should.
do?
Can I unplug this?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
They had one